I was born in 1957 in Bahrain, and I start my school in Bahrain, and then also part of the university. And then in 1975, Bahrain opened the market for an offshores, and many American and European and Japanese, they established their branches in Bahrain at that time, 1975, to gain from the business which was available in the Gulf countries. And they choose Bahrain as the financial hub for the Middle East. I was lucky to get a job in American Express, and I start with them 5 years. And then I moved to ABC, which is the Arab Banking Corporation, and I spent about 20 years. Arab Banking Corporation was established to be an international institution, and I gained a lot of experience both locally, regionally, as well as internationally, because ABC start their operation as a wholesale banking and then retail, and they expand in every markets. We used to be in 34 countries, and we gain that kind of experience. I was lucky, to be working in the banking in the international market. Then I moved to Al Baraka, and I spent now about 10 years with them. And Al Baraka also, more or less, it's like a regional bank. It has about 450 branches split in 14 countries, and it is in the 3 regional markets, which is cover Asian, part of the European, the African, and the Asian side. This is, just, a summary or a short about, my experience and my practice in the banking, both traditional as well as an Islamic. When I started the banking, I started in the traditional banking, and I never thought that I will be joining the Islamic banking. And I used to hear about the Islamic banking in the mid of the 80s, and it attracted my attention, and we decided in ABC at that time to establish a bank which is called ABC Islamic Bank, and I was the chairman, as a matter of fact, in that bank. And I remember my president and chief executive at that time, Mr. Abdullah Saudi, told me that, Adnan, I want this bank to be pure Islamic bank. I don't want anything which is it's not clear or there is a doubt about it. You just make sure that everything is there. To enable me to do that, first of all, I have to get the right Sharia board scholars in my bank. And alhamdulillah, we got a very good scholars at that time. And all of them, that they contribute a lot to ABC. And then I start moving from the traditional banks to the Islamic bank when I was with ABC. But at that time, I was just chairman. Then I moved to be as an executive chairman, i.e. that means I have an executive role plus chairman to run that institution. Then after I left ABC, I joined Al Baraka. And then just, I stick to the Islamic banking rather than the traditional banks. Although I'm a chairman of the Union Arab Banks, which represent all traditional as well as Islamic bank in the Arab world. You know that the Sharia scholars, when they start with us, they were a little bit not easy, because they get used to the retail banking. And ABC, when it was established as a wholesale. Just to let everybody know that the difference, there is a retail banks and there is a wholesale banking and there is the investment banking. And every bank has its own rules and kind of market. Therefore, that when we start with our wholesale banking, we were talking about big ticket transaction, complicated transaction, and cross-border transactions. We don't limit ourselves to the local market. Therefore, the scholars, although that they have the base or the foundation for the Islamic financing, but when they join us, they learn a lot. They learn how we do the syndication transaction. They learn how we do structure of the deals, complicated deals, how we do the leasing issues, and they learn and they gain a lot from our experience from the traditional banks. And then from that also we converted, or we tried to find ways how we can put this traditional transaction into an Islamic financing. And they did, contribute a lot. They used to work for 24 hours in Bahrain just to conclude our transactions because it was complicated. But once we put it in the market, many institutions, they gain from that experience. Furthermore, also the scholars start, to amend certain requirement in their requirement when they approve the first transaction for us. But therefore, it was, a good experience for both the scholars and for us in ABC at that time. Islamic banking is, I always call it a new product, and it is a philosophy, and it can work in all kind of countries. It needs just, encouragement of the regulators to allow the new products to be implemented and to be given the chance to be provided to the borrower. I believe that the Islamic banking go to the right economy. It go to the people, to the companies, to the countries, and it reflects on the economy. We are not lending for the purpose of lending. We don't see only the profit. In Islamic banking or in Islamic financing, profit is a goal. It is something which all institutions look to it. But also we see the structure of the deal, and we see what is the purpose of the deal. Is it something which is going to be benefit all the stakeholders, all the kind of the country or the economy? If we believe that yes, there is a good contribution in the economy, then we start lending. We don't lend for gambling, or we don't lend for just because we like to get profit. This is not our strategy. And I'm sure that it is applied in all the Islamic banking. Yes, profit is a target. Yes, profit is something which all the institutions are interested in, but also the purpose of the financing is more important than the return. You know that in the banking, always that you have to work in tough markets. Traditional banks now, they understand Islamic financing very well. As a matter of fact, now in big transactions whereby run by traditional banks, what we do is we create a tranche. We call it Islamic financing tranche, and we go along with the normal syndications. I think that it was a very complicated in the beginning. Now I think that if you go to most of the international banks, they understand very, very well the Islamic financing, and they know how to structure it, and it is now easy. As a matter of fact, now it is also in the website of most of the Islamic banking, including Al Barakah. You have the contracts available, and what you do is you copy it and you try to amend it according to your law and according to the requirement of your Sharia scholars' requirements. But it is not that complicated right now. It used to be. It used to be also very complicated for the tax authority. It was complicated for the regulator in most of the countries. But now I think that when you go to the European countries or Americans or Far East, and you talk about Islamic financing, I'm sure that most of them, they understand what you are talking about. You know that Islamic finance, it's not just for Muslims. I mean, Islamic finance is for all people who want to avoid paying interest. And LARIBA is, or the riba word, has been specified in the other religious, like the Christians and the Jews and the Muslims. For therefore that we are not trying to implement or trying to submit or trying to put a new idea. It is something which is everybody know. When you go to the religious people in the Christianity or in the Jews or in the Muslim, they will explain to you the riba, which is the interest, and they will tell you that it is prohibited, and it does not provide contribution to the economy, it does not provide contribution to the individuals. For therefore that they prohibited, and they try to find ways of doing the financing whereby you avoid the interest elements and you try to do it according to the shari'as in the three religious rather than just the Islam. They thought always, I don't like to use Islamic banking. It's not the right way. I mean, I always use kind of new products which go along with the Islamic principles. I will say that riba free, and some whereby that people they understand it, because sometimes that when you come to the European or the American markets, you have to try to explain to them in their ways. I mean, how they understand these products. But always, I always mention that this is a new product, and we have to try it, and we have to give the chance to everybody to learn it. Well, riba is the interest. It is the same things. It is interest built on interest, and sometimes that you are lending for the purpose of getting profit rather than lending for the purpose of contributing to the economy. And this is the philosophy. You know that in Islam, we Muslims always believe that the money is not your money. The money is a trust which has been given to you by God, and you have to find ways whereby you have to give it to the people to add value. It's just nothing. I mean, I give you the money just to spend it. No, I want to make sure that when I give you the money, there is an added value to it. There is something. There is a return to you, to me, to the stakeholders, to the economy in total. I should not just see you as a borrower. I should see you always as individual who is going to add value for the money. And that's why we say in Islam that money is, you are just being a person to, on behalf of God, to contribute the money or the wealth to people in a way whereby you contribute to the economy. This is the philosophy of Islam. Very simple. Well, you know that now if you take what's happened in Europe and America, all these crises, the bulk of that you will see it is a kind of a compound or a kind of accumulated interest on interest, or giving people something which is, it could happen and it could not happen. And that's why European countries, they promise the people a lot of things, a lot of benefits, which is good, which is very good as a matter of fact. But when economy start declining, they were not having the possibility to satisfy the people. And what's happened? They are issuing a new kind of bonds to enable them to close the gap. And what's happened is these bonds are accumulated, interest on the principles, it come, a very huge amount. See, for example, American debts right now, it's talking about, trillions of dollars, and everybody is concerned, who's going to pay this money in the coming years. I prefer to work in an environment which I could be open for a risk, rather than I work in an environment whereby I am 100% sure that I will get my money, and then after that there is nothing. If I have 5% of doubt at least, or a risk, I will prefer to deal with the risk rather than just, I'm satisfied, everything is okay, and when I retire I find that there is no money, and also the company does not exist. I mean, it will be a disaster for everybody. I believe that let everybody work on our concept. We don't want to say that we want to change everything, no. But this is new idea, new products, and people love, kind of new ideas, a new kind of studies to be done on these new ideas. And why not? Let us, contribute to this. I'm sure that you will find many of researchers will find that Islamic finance, has the chance to stand up and provide both individuals, companies, and government with the solution. If you go, for example, on the banking side, the traditional banks, when it has started? 300 years, don't that far, yani. And as a matter of fact, when it started in Europe, and I think that if I'm not mistaken, it was started in Spain, everybody rejected. European countries reject the interest, and they reject the banking activities at that time. And then after that, people just, start accepting it. And this is what's happened to most of the Muslim countries and the Arab countries. They took all their laws and their ideas that came from the European, because they were controlling these areas. And they implemented in all the Arab countries and the Muslim countries. Islamic banking, they have been in operation just for the past 40 years, which is very, very, very short period to decide whether, it can contribute to the economy and to the life of individuals or not. But as I say that this is a new product, it's worth that, people do a lot of research over it and see what kind of benefit they can get out of it, and what kind of changes we have to do it to satisfy both the new requirements and the principles of the Sharia, which has been implemented, as stated, 1,400 years. It is all a matter of knowledge. In Bahrain, for example, and now also many countries they follow, we put the Islamic products in the education system, whereby the kids in the school, he understand what does it mean, murabaha, musharaka, leasing, and everything. And when they go to the universities, especially if they are studying, business administrations, they will find all these products with more details available and subjects for them in the university. For therefore, the concept is not something which is new. But when it comes to new markets, like as you say, we say in America or in the European countries, as I say that, you have always to start with kind of education. You go to the European now, I can tell you that, I reviewed too many masters and PhD research to many of the students, and they talk about Islamic finance. I tell you that many universities now, especially in UK, they put Islamic finance as a subject, and also a kind of a certificate. If you want to take, for example, a business administration, focus on Islamic finance. I tell you that, tell you that the European has already now adopted and accepted the Islamic financing. And I'm sure that, when you go through the histories, Islamic financing is not something which is new. It was part of the business at that time, but it was not recorded. Except in the Islam, we have recorded these things for the past 1,400. We have scholars which they did a lot of research about murabaha, musharaka, and unfortunately, it was in the books. It was not implemented in these countries because, as I say, that many countries, Muslims and Arab, they inherited systems which came from the European side. I have to say that, Islamic financing has to be presented in a nice way, and in the way where people they understand it. You should not rush. Banking is not something which is easy, because you are talking about money, and money has a lot of effects when something go wrong. That's why now when we see crisis in the United States about the mortgage loan, although that it was specified as a mortgage loan, but it went and hit other sectors in the economy. But therefore that we have to give it a chance. We have to do a lot of research over it. We have to try and convince people about it, and let people, judge whether this is the right way for borrowing or not. I believe that, that they will discover that this is the right way of borrowing. The next step for the Islamic banking is to come up with new ideas which is acceptable in new markets. We succeed in doing a lot of financing in our countries, in the Muslim countries. I think now this is the time whereby, that you have also to come with the new ideas in the market. I create two banks, Islamic banks in UK. It was one which was Islamic Bank of Britain, and the other one which is a European Islamic Investment Bank, EIIB. And I was the chairman of EIIB and a director of IBB. It was not difficult. The people in UK, they opened the doors for us. It took us a while to adjust our products according to the law in these countries. But later on, you will not believe it, we receive application from both Muslim and non-Muslims for getting our financing. We succeed in countries like South Africa, for example. I'm the chairman of Al Baraka Bank in South Africa. And now they are accepting the idea of the Islamic banking. As a matter of fact, they allowed their big banks to open windows to provide Islamic finance. As a matter of fact, now the country has already requested us to be part of a team to review the possibility of issuing sukuk for the government. This to tell you that, Islamic financing is something which is coming up. It is a new product, and I think it's worth that people study it to get the benefit out of it. Sukuk and the Islamic banks can provide a good new products for the governments to diversify the lenders and to diversify their products. Now we hear that Japan has already tried to issue sukuk. There is a possibility of issuing sukuk also in Malaysia has already issued sukuk. Bahrain has already issued sukuk. There is also talk now about Turkey, which is going to issue sukuk. South Africa, which I mentioned it. Egypt, which was, a country which was not easy at that time for issuing sukuk. Now they are thinking seriously to issue sukuk. Tunisia, they are also thinking about issuing sukuk. The good part also that there are countries which their market was very close or close on the Islamic banking. They don't allow the Islamic banking to be operating. These two countries, at least in the Arab world, was Oman and Morocco. Now these two countries, they open. In Oman there is now two Islamic banks, and there is a possibility maybe after a few years that the Sultanate might issue a sukuk for their own normal borrowing. Morocco also, there is a new law which is going to be approved by the government for allowing Islamic banks to operate in Morocco. All these kind of things, it give you that countries are right now ready to take the Islamic financing. When I start the Islamic part, I thought that we will be just restricted ourselves in a few markets, and we will be restricted ourselves in few products, Murabaha and the others. And as I mentioned to you, I was in ABC, the Islamic Bank. It was a wholesale, And I say that, maybe it will be just limited in the wholesale side. I was, I was not surprised because, I was a believer in Islamic finance. Within just 15 years, and I have to admit that because of the Bahrain Central Bank created in 1985 a desk to supervise Islamic banking and to push the Islamic banking ahead. Have they not done this, I don't think that we will see Islamic banking now. But Bahrain took the initiative at that time, and they were criticized at that time. As a matter of fact, they say that it is very difficult to supervise as a regulator the Islamic banking. But they took that initiatives and they took that responsibility and tried to implement it in the system. And now I see that Islamic banking has already filtered in many countries, and I think that I'm not now worried about it. I'm just worried about that, okay, we reached to a good level of development. We should continue. We should not just stop. The worst things is, when you do a lot of things and then suddenly you say that, oh, I reached the top, that's it. I mean, I don't want to expand. And this is, the mistake which it might be done. But, I look to the Islamic banking as the future for our problems.